Good day to everyone. It's a new week of Betting Weekly Live. Happy Labor Day to everyone celebrating it across the world. And I'm delighted to welcome for his live show debut, senior WTA handicapper, Rory Jiwani. How you doing?
I'm good. I seem to have got a promotion. That's quite nice. Always a good way to start. But yeah. Normally just WTA handicapper, but I guess senior because we did have a couple of wins recently. So maybe that's resulted in a promotion. But delighted to be joining you. Thank you, Steve. And yeah, the US Open is into the second week in New York, and plenty of matches to look at, and one starting almost straight away.
Yeah, we've got to go not into the pleasantry straight away. We're straight into the matches and bets because we've got, of course, you're here. We're going to be talking a lot about all of the tennis in the US Open. But we're starting with the women's today. It was a match just about to kick off. You have to find this perhaps on the live section of the Bet Rivers website. We've got Paolini against Muchova. And you have got a pick for this game. Paolini plus 140 on the money line, minus 175 for Muchova. How do you see this game going? Kicks off imminently at Flushing Meadows in the US Open.
Yeah, it's funny because Muchova is one of my favourite players. Is probably my favourite player on the tour. It's actually just gone in play. I think Paolini's a big price here. I do actually have an interest in this because I've backed Paolini in the outright market quite a long time back. She reached the final of the French Open. She reached the final of Wimbledon. A note in general about women's tennis and tennis in general, especially with women's tennis, because they're not so quick on things. If you're following a player who's in form, look at the futures market on future slams because they're quite slow to update. And I backed Paolini at $50, which in the end wasn't massive because she went off at 33. But if you see a player going well at a big tournament, there's value to be had in the futures market. Check them out for a slam down the road. You might get a decent price. I'm going to say the bet straight away. I fancy Paolini plus 140. I think she's plus 138 now because she's serving first. I think she's a big price. I said Muchova's my favourite player on the tour. She reached the French Open final last year. She struggled with injuries before that and since. She had wrist surgery, didn't come back until the grass season this year. But she's been gradually improving. She's been playing well. Here in New York, she's been playing very well. She beat Naomi Osaka and Anastasia Potapova pretty comfortably. Against Osaka, she had 24 winners to 13 unforced errors. Against Potapova, 24 winners to 11 unforced errors. Those are great stats. But Paolini is having a brilliant year. She reached the final of the French and Wimbledon. She won doubles gold at the Olympics with Sara Errani. And she's on a run again here. She had a good win against Yulia Putintseva in the previous round. Now, the Czech has won all three of their previous meetings, but the last of those was over 3 years ago. And Paolini is a much, much better player now. Muchova's got great variety, but Paolini, she's a great returner. And, she just seems to raise her games in the slams this year. She just seems to get it done. And Muchova, for all that she's a great talent, I'm surprised she's such a strong favourite here. When I saw this match, I thought it would be Pick'em, to be honest. I really
plus 138 at the light. It's in the live department now, like you say, because of we know who the server is going to be. This match has started. You're going to be able to bet on this throughout the whole first set. But get on ASAP, I would say. There's been some big price winners in the ladies' draw recently. Just some numbers here. Navarro was plus 175. Haddad Maia plus 155. Mertens plus 190. Wang at
that
plus 260.
Yeah,
the biggest price winner in the US Open for women's was Ponce at 12-1. Against Rybakina in the round of 32, was it?
Yeah, Rybakina was a walkover because Rybakina
was that a walkover?
Yeah. So
I was just looking back at the historical odds today, so that was actually inaccurate. But the point being, there's been some big price dogs winning the ladies, so every reason to think that Paolini, and of course you actually tipped her up on the outright preview show at 40-1. So there's a lot of interest for you here, Rory. Are you feeling confident?
I was kind of with Paolini. I was kind of wavering. I'm actually on Badosa, who's still going. She's into the quarterfinals in the bottom half of the draw. I'm on her at 40-1, and she plays Emma Navarro. I guess it would be tomorrow. But Paolini, yes, I am on her. I'm on her at 50s. Not on. I didn't bet.
Sorry, yes, on the actual. Badosa's the pick, isn't?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paolini, I didn't tip her on the show. Sadly, I probably did mention it. I did watch back my preview show with Nigel, and I did say Paolini I thought was a good bet, but she had Andreescu in the first round, and that put me off her to win the quarter and to win outright. You can see the outright prices are up there. Sabalenka still the favourite. I find it very hard to see her not reaching the final now. Just the way the odds, how it's gone. If Badosa gets through, I mean, Sabalenka always beats Badosa. And she did beat Navarro, I think, the last time they met. So I think Sabalenka's a very solid favourite. Swiatek next best at +250. I think the top half is really competitive. Sorry, I just noticed. I did see it say that Paolini was serving. It's actually Muchova who served. There was a little mistake, I think, on who's the serve, but Muchova's serving first. I think the top half is still very open. Swiatek, we'll look at her match because she plays Ludmila Samsonova later today. It's a match she should win comfortably. But then if she gets through that, she faces the winner of the match between Diana Shnaider and Jessica Pegula. And that is interesting. I fancy Swiatek there. But then she faces probably the winner of Muchova and Paolini. And I think Swiatek might struggle there.
If you had a free $50 bet right now, who would it go on?
On the outright? Ooh,
yeah.
I think Paolini at 25. So I think that's still a very big price. She's got to get past Muchova today. I mean, it would be some sort of fairy tale after being runner-up at Roland Garros and Wimbledon. But at the prices, I think that's massive. It's still each way half, top two, each way reaching the final. I fancy Paolini against Swiatek on this surface. It's not been as quick as predicted. I think there was talk that it would be as quick as Cincinnati. It's not been that quick. In terms of percentages, in terms of statistics, if I can say that properly, the service hold percentage for Cincinnati was just over 70. For this tournament, it's been 66.8. So without knowing too much about the figures, I'll just tell you that's kind of the fast side of medium, whereas Cincinnati was a fair bit quicker. So, Swiatek is best when it's slow. Some of her opponents are favoured by it being quicker, and we see it on bottom right there, Swiatek against Samsonova.
We're going to talk about the other games in the ladies today, and the next one that kicks off is at 12 p.m. Eastern, and we've got Shnaider against Pegula here, +185 now. Shnaider on the money line. She's been nibbled a little bit here. Pegula is a bit of a drifter. The games line though has gone up to 22.5 now. So, which is interesting, actually. Do you have any thoughts on this particular game, Rory? Who do you think is going to win it? Would you have a lean in terms of the betting?
I can't really see a bet on this one. These are two of the most informed players on the circuit. I mean, they met in Toronto in the semi-finals a few weeks back. Pegula won in straight sets and went on to retain the title, the Canadian Open title. Schneider's won 3 tournaments this year, Pegula 2. And Pegula also reached the final at Cincinnati last month. I was saying about the court speed, like Pegula prefers it quick. I don't think these conditions are quite quick enough for her. I mean, she's doing well, obviously, but for her to beat someone like Swiatek, I think she'd need it quicker still. And with the conditions being a bit slower than Cincinnati, I think that perhaps gives Shnaider more of a chance. They've had pretty easy paths so far. I mean, Pegula was pushed a bit by Sophia Kenin in round 2. I think Pegula's a rightful favourite here. Shnaider was it +185 now, so she has been backed a little bit. It's not a match I want to get too involved with. Maybe it's one you can back in running and see how Shnaider gets on early. If Pegula's serving well and starts well, she should win this. But if Shnaider can hang with her early, it could be very interesting.
Caroline Wozniacki is against Haddad Maia, and this start time is going to be close to around 3 p.m. Eastern today. This is a genuine pick'em. -107 for Wozniacki, -114 Haddad Maia at the time of going live. I mean, with this being such a close betting heat, the over games would just interest me straight off the bat, Rory, at -125 for over 21.5 now. Do you see this one going the distance and going all the way, or do you think someone should be favoured more?
I think I'm inclined to think overs is the way to look at this. There were a couple of markets I was interested in. I mean, it's funny because Haddad Maia she'd been really disappointing this season until last week or the week before last. She reached a final in Cleveland. And even then, she went down to McCartney Kessler, who's an American wild card. Here, she's played better. She came through an opening 3-setter against Elena Avanesian. A good win over Anna Kalinskaya last round, but the Russian didn't really turn up. Wozniacki hasn't faced anyone of note yet, so this is a big step up. But I think this will be tight. I mean, the two markets I was interested in, over 2.5 sets at +135, I thought was interesting. And I think, if you think it's going to go 3 sets, I think you could be quite adventurous on the overs games. And one I was looking at was over 25.5 games, which was +163.
So look to ladder it then, maybe, Rory, as we say. Ladder it, yeah.
Yeah, I think, Haddad Maia is a funny one. She's a lefty. She can be quite difficult. She hasn't been in great form this season. Against someone like Wozniacki, they haven't met before. I don't think the Brazilian's bulletproof. I mean, she's a very, very slight favourite. I think this is going to be really close. So I think, a lean on over 2.5 sets, and to go with that, the over 25.5 games. I think both are very possible. Over 25.5 games is +163.
We've got Nigel Seeley in the comments. Hope you're doing well out there, Nigel. He says it's very hot and humid today, and that might help Pegula and Haddad Maia. So, I mean, you obviously with tennis, you've got to factor in all the conditions, haven't you? Weather as well, and who copes best on those sort of conditions. I don't know if that would be a factor for you, Rory, when you're considering these bets.
Well, the heat sort of helps. They sort of almost cancel each other out in a way, because with the heat, the balls tend to travel quicker. With the humidity, they get a bit kind of wet. So then that slows them up. So it being hot and humid, they can sort of cancel out each other. Anything where the courts speed up slightly is going to help Pegula. And probably Haddad Maia against Wozniacki probably would help the Brazilian as well. Wozniacki is just a great defensive player. She gets everything back. So if it's a bit slower, that helps her. But I wouldn't have thought it would make too much of a difference. It wouldn't change my thinking too much.
The final game that we're going to talk about here is Iga Swiatek against Samsonova. Now, this match is going to be a 7 p.m. Eastern time kickoff. I know you've got quite a strong pick in this game, Rory. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, Swiatek's been pretty ruthless in her last 2 matches. She looked really dodgy in her opener against Kamila Rakimova, the Russian. But in her last win against Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova, she didn't have to face a single break point. Now, Samsonova is probably the most serve-dependent player on the tour. And she is a player that needs it quick, and Swiatek prefers it slow. And as I said, conditions haven't been as quick as build. Now, in their 3 previous meetings, I think they're quite instructive. The first time they met was at Stuttgart, which, although is on clay, is indoors and very quick. Quicker than Cincinnati was a couple of weeks ago, far quicker than here. And Samsonova pushed her close. It was 6-4 in the third to Swiatek. But their last 2 meetings were in Dubai and Beijing last year in very similar conditions to this. In Dubai, Swiatek won 6-love, 6-1. In Beijing, she won 6-2, 6-2. So when it's not really quick, Swiatek wins, hands down. And I think it's going to be a similar story today. Very, very.
You like
good.
the handicap, don't you?
I do like the handicap. Yeah. I'm going for Swiatek -6.5 games at +120. I mean, and that's giving Samsonova a bit of a chance. I think it could be pretty one-sided. It could be around a sort of 6-1, 6-1. You know, we all talk about the Swiatek bakery. She gets the bagels, the 6 loves, and the breadsticks, the 6-1s. And we might see the bakery open again today. But as far as it feels like a safe bet from my point of view, -6.5 games at +120.
I prefer the butchers to the bakery, Rory, most of the time, but I don't mind if Swiatek is going to deliver here. I mean, she's -1,000 on the money line with Bet Rivers. If anyone's just after an easy parlay piece today to add to something, I mean, is this an absolute banker then? Just straight on the money line as well, obviously?
I would say so. I mean, it's not the sort of price I'd play, but it would take a big leap of imagination to see Samsonova win this in these conditions. I mean, she's a good player. But as I say, she's very serve dependent. Swiatek's one of the best returners in the game. So, you know, I just cannot see the Russian landing a blow in this.
Well, stay tuned. Later on, I do have a couple of soccer picks from around the world. I've got a pick from Argentina later on. So stay tuned for that one. But we're going to now talk about the men's in the US Open. There's been obviously 2 huge upsets here at Flushing Meadows with Djokovic out and Alcaraz out. So Jannik Sinner's now the favourite. +125 on the money line. We've got Medvedev, Sean Calvert's pick, now into +380. Zverev is Sean Calvert's pick, +400. I do apologise there. I mean, it looks a wide open market at the moment. That's for sure, Rory. I mean, first of all, were you on any of the dogs that beat? I mean, Popperin was a pick. Nigel Seeley tipped that one up. Van der Zanderslip was 18-1 against Alcaraz, probably bigger on the exchanges. Did he have any joy there?
Sadly not. Well, the Dutchman was a ridiculous price, wasn't he, to beat Alcaraz? I think
one of the biggest sporting shocks of the year.
Yeah,
it's been said.
But is it Van der Zandschulp, I think?
Yeah, tough one to pronounce, that one.
The Dutchman did really well, and then unsurprisingly lost the match after in straight sets, which often happens. And Nigel calls it the auto fade. After a player has a really big win, then suddenly the next match it's back to reality. So that's opened it right up, the draw.
Who's your winner from here, Rory? Who do you think's going to win it?
Well, it's funny because you're looking at the draw, and Zverev is already into the quarterfinals. He plays Taylor Fritz. And then the other quarterfinal is Grigor Dimitrov and Francis Tiafoe. That's the bottom half. In the top half, well, Jannik Sinner's facing Tommy Paul and Nuno Borges is facing Dmitry Medvedev. The winner of those 2 matches plays each other in the quarterfinals. So you'd probably want to be avoiding Sinner and Medvedev because, Sinner would be favourite for that encounter. But, you're going to lose one of them there. Zverev, you'd think, comes through that bottom half. Although Taylor Fritz, he's the sort of player on home soil who could really get the crowd behind him, and really give Zverev something to think about. The same with Tiafoe, although I'm not quite sure he's in that bracket just yet. Fritz v Zverev, you'd be looking at the winner of that quarterfinal to get to the final. So at the it's win-only market. Zverev at $4 doesn't look a bad price, given that he's in the easier half. But you'd think that whoever wins Sinner v Medvedev would win the tournament.
The 4 matches today, and there's some significantly big favourites here, and some decent dogs. Let's start. We've got Jack Draper against Thomas Machac. That is the first match, which is going to kick off around about 1 p.m. Eastern. Then we've got Borges against Medvedev. That's set to kick off 1:15 Eastern time. Then Minaur against Jordan Thompson is a later game, 5 p.m. Eastern. And the night match at 8:15 Eastern. These are estimated times, of course. Jannik Sinner against Tommy Paul. That's the big game, isn't it? I mean, it's obviously the men's... US Open isn't your main speciality, Rory, but if you were to advise maybe one bet today in the men's, what sort of direction would you be looking at?
I mean, the one I'm really interested in is the All-Australian clash, because I've been thinking from quite early on, just by sort of reading around and everything, you know, Alex de Minaur, he still has a hip problem, which ruled him out of Wimbledon. I'm going to have to, excuse me. He's still got a hip problem. He wasn't sure he was going to play in the second round. And, you know, he beat Dan Evans in the last round. Evans was completely finished. He'd come through an epic in the previous round. And de Minaur was just, you know, just had to hit some balls back because Evans could barely move. He won the last 2 sets, 6-love. But I still think de Minaur, he's not fully fit. So he's up against Jordan Thompson, who's in the form of his life. Now, de Minaur has a 4-1 head-to-head over Thompson, but their last meeting was 2 years ago, so you can forget that. I think you have to take de Minaur on. You know, Thompson is plus 270. I think that's a play, just because, you know, de Minaur doesn't, you know, he's talked about not being fully fit. He's still struggling with it.
You can get him plus 5.5 games at plus 105. Or is this one of those where you think he either wins or he gets beaten comfortably, sort of?
I think you can go on the money line here, just because the fitness is a doubt. And, you know, it's one where, you know, you even have the situation where de Minaur could pull out injured after 2 or 3 sets. And then I think you'd be a bit stitched up on the game's handicap, but you'd probably win on the money line. So I think Thompson's a play there. As well, looking at other matches, I thought Draper v Machac was interesting. I like Machac. I saw him against Andy Murray in Miami and was impressed. And the Czechs got a 3-0 record over Draper. They've all been close matches. Neither man's dropped a set so far. They're both playing well. Looking at their 3 previous meetings, there's been a tie break in the first set in 2 of those previous meetings. And they're both serving so well, it could happen again. So the bet I liked in this, I was leaning towards, was the first set games over 10.5 at plus 235, because we get the tie break, we get the 7-5 in there as well. And I thought that looked quite a good bet for 2 players serving so well. And Sean Calvert made some good observations about this match as well on the pod that dropped earlier with Nigel. I thought that was the way to go here. It's interesting that Machac has a 3-0 head-to-head record, but Draper's quite a strong favourite there. I thought that was quite interesting in itself. But I thought the overs games angle on the first set was a good way into this.
Yeah, I've just put the link to the latest episode of Game Back Match on the comments section. If you've not watched it already, then do check it out with Sean Calvert and Nigel Seeley out there in America at the moment.
Good one. Something to report. Paolini's got a break up in the first set, so she's already on top. So we're started well.
Just what you wanted there, Rory. Just what you wanted there. I just wanted to ask you one more thing before I do move on to some soccer picks today. Obviously, the big talk was about Djokovic getting beat, was Alcaraz getting beat, but actually, there hasn't been that many dogs win in the men's draw amongst all that. Just in the round of 16, only 2 dogs did win. That was Popyrin and Tiafoe. So, I mean, do you see that continuing or not? Do you think we could, now that some of these top names are out of the draw, does it add some pressure? Are we going to see, you know, I mean, you fancy Thompson's an outsider today. Have you got to take it game by game? Or do you expect to see the favourites keep prevailing at the US Open in general?
I mean, that's one part of the reason I prefer betting women's tennis to men's tennis, because I think men's tennis is just that bit more predictable, which might make me crazy in some eyes. But, you know, there are lots more tennis compilers into men's tennis than women's tennis. And I think the analysis of it is far deeper. So I think you're slightly, part of the reason I play women's tennis more is I think you're slightly more likely to get an edge. With the men's tennis, they're not going to miss as much. So that probably accounts for why you don't get as many, you know, losing favourites in the men's game. You know, the market tends to know pretty much what's going on. I think that will continue. I can't see any reason why we're going to suddenly get loads of shocks. I mean, and the men's game is such. Well, obviously, we've seen Alcaraz and Djokovic get turned over at massive odds by massive underdogs. But there is there is a level in the men's game. You've got your top kind of 4 or 5 probably, and I'd still obviously include Alcaraz and Djokovic there. But your Sinner, Medvedev, and Zverev, you've got those 5, and then there's a little bit of a drop off to the rest. So, those 5, apart from obviously this week, are unlikely to get beaten before the business end of proceedings. So, I would expect to see Sinner or Medvedev reach the final, and I'd expect Zverev to reach the final from the bottom half.
Right, well, before we finish the show, there is some soccer around the world today. There's some matches here. These are the most significant games, and there'll be people out there watching. They'll want to pick in some of these games. So I do have a couple of leads, and I've got a couple of strong bets as well that I'm going to advise. Probably the most high-profile game actually is in England League 2, Salford City against MK Dons. MK Dons were one of the favourites to win League 2 this year. Got off to a bit of a sluggish start, Rory. But they can be back now at plus 110 to win away at Salford tonight, which would be a lean for me. A key stat which I dug up today, Salford have only had 9 shots on target in 5 games this season, which I think is a really poor number of shots on target. You're not going to score many goals with those sort of stats. This could be MK Dons to win on the money line plus 110 or even win to nil at a bigger price, get plus 200 on that. That would only be a lean. Over in Norway, it's got the OBOS Liga, and these matches kick off at 1 p.m. Eastern time. I think a big price on over 2.5 goals in Raufoss against Sogndal. Now, this league is usually one of the highest scoring leagues in the whole of Europe. So to get a straight over 2.5 goals at minus 129 I think it's only priced up this way because these two teams rank in the top 5 for under 2.5 goal games in the league. However, their goals per game average is still pretty high, and recent form has seen both teams score a few goals and concede a few. So I'll go Raufoss Sogndal over 2.5 goals, probably as my best bet today, actually, in, Norway OBOS Liga. The other match there, Levadia against Egersund. I think Egersund on a tie no bet at plus 100 could be worth looking at, but they're quite an inconsistent side, and they've lost players in the transfer window. And to conclude things, Liga Professional in Argentina, an Argentinian pick for you guys out here. Now, this is one of the lowest scoring leagues in the world. Don't know if you ever heard that before, Rory, but the goals do not rack up in Argentina very often. It's not uncommon to have goal lines as low as 1.5, right? Now, both home teams today, I don't think will get beat in Argentina. And the one that really interests me, actually, is Gimnasia de la Plata against Argentinos Juniors. And now Argentinos Juniors have lost all 5 away games so far this season. They haven't scored a goal away from home yet this year, Rory. And this could be 0-0. So I think the best way to go is to do a same game parlay, Gimnasia de la Plata, to draw or win the game, and to be under 2.5 goals at minus 115. That covers, you'll win if that ends 0-0, 1-1, 1-0, or 2-0. Same game parlay there. You could probably do the same game parlay for Godoy Cruz as well. But don't expect many goals in Argentina. Have you enjoyed your live show debut, Rory?
I have. I was just going to ask about, obviously you're picking from Norway and Argentina where the leagues are quite well developed, if you like. So, I've seen like Norway, was it 20 odd games already this season? For you, is it easier, do you think, because you've got all this form to go on, as opposed to obviously English season's just started? Is it easier to pick games from Norway and Argentina, for instance?
Yes, is the simple answer. Scandinavia is definitely easier to pick. At the minute we go in it, I mean, there's not much form to go on in a lot of the European leagues. So, of course, it's a lot easier to find a winner in, say, Sweden or Norway. Argentina is still a little bit early in their campaign. But, yeah, I mean, look, we saw at the weekend there was a few strange results around. The transfer window just closed as well. Shakespeare, good day to you. Great to see you in the show again. He says Cleveland Indians versus the Kansas City Royals under 8 runs at -120. Could be worth a go. And the Chicago Cubs as well, cashed in the first innings. So, I do appreciate everyone being in the show live or on demand. Do hit that like button if you're not already. And do hit that subscribe button. We're really close to 5,000 subscribers here at Because We Win, which I can't believe the support we've been getting recently. It's been superb across all the shows. And you're back later in the week on the live show with Dan Roebuck, actually, on Thursday, Rory. I'm back tomorrow with Jack Wright. We're going to be talking about EFL Trophy, I think, tomorrow, and possibly looking ahead to the international break. But best of luck, Rory, with all your bets today, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. Remember to gamble responsibly, and goodbye.